Hello. So this is going to be the first one in regards to the Digimon Tamers families video. So this one's going to be about the Matsuki family. So Takado's parents and his cousin and his grandfather that we meet throughout the course of the series. And then I'll do Henry's family and then Rika's family. Henry's family will kind of get split between two videos because I will talk about his dad in regards to the rest of his family with his mom and his other siblings, but then also his dad will get talked about quite a bit when I do the Monster Makers, when I do that video. So those ones will have a little bit of a crossover with that, or a little bit of a, cover similar sections of things, but there'll be additional things in the other Monster Maker stuff because I'll talk about the other Monster Makers in that one too. This one is about Takado's parents, so that would be the Matsuki family, Takahiro and Yoshi Matsuki. Takahiro is Takado's father. He is 41 years old, and his mother is Yoshi, and she is 35 years old. Basically, kind of the background that we get on them is that, of course, they own this bakery, that's the Matsuki Bakery and everything, and of course, them and Takado live in the house section above it, which is fairly common in lots of places around the world. It's very common in Japan for, people have a shop down below and then their shop or their business down below and then their residence up top. I know that happens here in America a lot too. Where, oh, well, there's an apartment up top that you can rent and, all of that fun stuff. So there's that. Out of all the different parents that we see them in regards to the Tamers during the Parent series. We do kind of see them a little bit more than we did with the Adventure series because, of course, with the Adventure series, the first part of the series takes place in the digital world itself, so their parents aren't really around. We get mentions of their parents, but we don't really see them, except in some flashbacks here and there when it comes to, Sora and then Tai and then Izzy, we get some flashbacks with their parents. And then, of course, when they're back in the real world, during the whole, Myotismon arc where they're trying to find the 8th Digidestin and everything, during that time frame, then we see a little bit more of their parents. We get to meet pretty much all of their parents for the most part. Well, we don't ever actually, during that part of the series, we never really get to see Joe's parents, Joe and Jim's parents and such, and then their third brother. We never get to see them. And then in the second season, we do get to see, the other parents and family members of some of the other Digidestin, of course, throughout a good chunk of it. Because, of course, a lot of it takes place in the real world. For this one, because, during the first season of the original series, the kids kind of had to hide their Digimon, and then the parents kind of found out rather quickly. And then, of course, during the second season, Kari and Tai didn't have to hide Gatomon or Agumon from their mom or dad because they already knew. TK didn't have to hide Patamon, from his parents because they knew, that type of stuff. And then, the other Digidestin's parents, they eventually told them about it, or they eventually found out. Ken being the main one that told his parents. And then, of course, Cody told his grandfather. And then, of course, his grandfather kind of knew already with his, history with, Cody's father and Digimon. But with this case, basically, the introduction we get to Takado's parents is, he shows up at home after, he's, been at school, and then, his calculator transforms into a Digivice, and, I mean, clearly, all the different parents that we see throughout the course of this series love their children. It just depends on, which aspect you're going for at the time. His parents very much enjoy running their bakery. Takado helps a lot with that, considering the fact that we do see him helping with, different things around the bakery at times. And then, of course, the next big thing that we see is, I think it's in the second episode, when Takado kind of has to, sneak Gilmon home because he has no idea where the heck to put Gilmon, so he has to, sneak him home under this giant box, and he sneaks him upstairs, and his parents are just watched him try to sneak this thing upstairs, and he's like, oh, it's a school project, gets it upstairs. And his parents are to each other, our building doesn't allow pets, right? Yeah, I know. We'll have to tell him to get rid of it. I know. And his dad seems sad that they have to make him get rid of they think it's a dog. It's clearly it's Gilmon for the audience, but they think it's a dog of some kind. And such. So eventually it ends up being, of course, throughout the course of that time frame, Takado has to keep coming up with different, lies or reasons for why he wasn't, home when he was supposed to be. At various points, we see him have to, pretend, oh, well, there was a school thing I had to do later, or I was hanging out with my friends in the park, which is technically not a lie because Henry is there a lot when things happen. So Henry is now his friend. And his parents eventually find out about Henry, of course. And then, we have various points where we see his parents, of course, worrying about where he is. And there's a moment where it's just like, well, why don't we eat the ice cream and then tell him that it melted? I already ate the ice cream. Darn it. We get moments of levity with the parents, but we clearly see that they very much are worried about Takato. Throughout the course of the series, when it gets to kind of where we see the first movie take place, the Digimon Battle of Adventures movie, during that time frame, we do see Takato's parents. We see them, sending him off on his way to go. They're worried about him flying all the way to Okinawa to go and visit his cousin and his uncle, or cousin and their grandfather, which I will get to. Flies all the way there and everything. They're worried about him flying for the first time. And it's just like, it's okay. Henry's with him. Well, okay, yeah, Henry is very responsible. So I'm like, yeah, no, okay, that passes. That'll pass. And I mean, I was trying to remember if his parents ever meet Rika. Well, I mean, like, they do meet her later on in the series, but I was like, I don't think they meet her beforehand. I don't think they ever meet Rika beforehand. Henry and Takato hanging out makes sense because they go to the same school. Rika goes to a completely different school and lives in a much higher, lives in a much higher class area of town, given the fact that her mother is a supermodel, which I will get to when I talk about Rika and her video, or Rika's mother and grandmother and her video. But Takato, his parents send him off, and at one point, like, Takato ends up on camera because reasons in the movie, and at one point I will do like a review of all the different Digimon movies, reviews of all of them. I just have to figure out when I'm going to do that. But like, his parents, see him arrive, and it's just like, oh, well, he at least got there safe. Okay. And then we don't see his parents again for the rest of the movie. And then when everything happens with Vicaramon, we have these moments where when everything happens with Vicaramon, it is very much his, he is, how can I explain this? When everything happens with Vicaramon, their bakery is kind of in an area where, there's a lot of damage that does happen, but the bakery ends up being okay. But part of it does end up being that there are certain parts of the city that have to be evacuated. And Takato's mother is somewhat refusing to leave until Takato returns because she doesn't want to leave him. And we get this moment where, of course, she's, I still have to figure out if I'm going to do a video about like the military in regards to this series, because this season actually gets a lot more involved with the military than like the Digimon Adventures did, in regards to how like the military would respond to a lot of these different threats from the Digimon. But, Takato's parents, of course, don't want to leave without him and everything. And, of course, when he does get home, we see how worried they were. There's also a moment where, like, Kazu and Kenta show up at, like, the bakery, and they're trying to convince Takato's dad to make Gilmon bread. Because, of course, we know at this point in time that Gilmon just loves bread. And then, which is just adorable. And then, which works perfectly considering that it's, his Tamers parents own a bakery and he can eat all the day-old bread he wants. But, like, they're trying to explain to his dad what a Gilmon is, and it doesn't really work very well, and Takato just has to, like, drag them out of there. We also, I think this is just in the English version, but there's a moment where, like, we see his mother, like, applying, like, face cream in the mirror. It's just like, come on, anti-aging cream, work. So we get that moment. And then when, after everything does happen with Vicaramon, once, Calamon is kidnapped and everything, all the Tamers are just like, well, we have to go to the digital world, of course, to try to rescue Calamon. Because he's our friend and he was kidnapped. And, they find their way to get to the digital world. Gilmon finds the portal, and then each of the kids have to subsequently, well, each of the three main ones, and then Jerry, have to basically, introduce their Digimon to their parents. At this point in time, for Henry's father, for John, he already knows about Terriermon being alive, which I'll go over more in the Henry's family. But Takato just straight up just, you know, walks into the bakery with Gilmon behind him, and his mother just kind of like freaks out at him, which, okay, admittedly, if your child walked into your home or your business with, you know, a dinosaur that is basically bigger than them behind them, I would rightfully freak out too. Yes, I would definitely be like that. Okay, why is that here and why is it in my house and what is it? Um, Big red dinosaur. Go big red. Um, I'm recording this on a game day, and I have no idea what time the game is, and I have no idea if we're picked to win or not. I don't know. Um, that's left up for debate. Um, but we get, you know, she's just like freaking out, and she like hides behind her husband, and he goes like, Takahiro goes, "You must be Gilmon," and Gilmon's like, "Yep." And then we have this, of course, moment where like Takato and his parents, you know, like where they sit down and like Gilmon's there, and like he's like more introducing them to Gilmon, and like Takato's mom is still like very, you know, kind of scared and hiding behind her husband. Because I mean, yeah, it's a dinosaur. Gilmon is a straight up dinosaur looking thing. So yeah, no, I don't blame her for being concerned and worried and everything. And you know, so we have these moments here, and then his mother is showing how worried she is, because she's just like, I want you to be safe. I don't know what you're going to do with this, or, you know, I don't understand why you have to go to the digital world at this point in time. And he's like, well, I have to go because they took one of our friends and we have to go and save them and such, and we don't know how long we're going to be gone and everything. And Takato's dad just kind of, he basically just kind of accepts it. He's like, he gets up and he goes into, I guess, well, because part of their home is, of course, connected to the bakery area, they have, you know, and in the process of course, making bread and everything, there's various points where you have dough at various stages of, like, you know, rising and settling and everything like that. You know, you make stuff, you know, the night before, so it'll rise overnight, and then you can get it baking in the morning and everything after you get it all set up into the different fun shapes and everything. And his dad just like pulls out this bowl of, you know, probably bread, you know, dough that's, you know, been rising for a little while, and he just kind of starts, you know, beating it and everything, you know, getting it ready for him to cook. And his wife comes in and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, Takato's going to go anyway. He's determined to go. And the best we can do is send him off with our support. And she's still very much nervous about this. And like Gilmon comes in and he goes like, don't worry, I'll keep Takato safe. And she's still kind of scared. And he goes like, so, and you know, and his, you know, and Takato's dad talks to Gilmon again. He's like, so you were the one that they wanted me to make Gilmon bread of. Gilmon bread? Yay, there's gonna be bread shaped like me! Gilmon's just so happy, which I think just kind of throws Takato's mom off, because, like, she wasn't expecting, you know, Gilmon to be, like, this kind of childish to a degree, but still very, you know, responsible, because, like, throughout the course of the first part of the series, we do see Gilmon grow up. You know, mentally grow up and everything. And, you know, so we see that his mother, you know, that, you know, his dad is supportive of Takato going, and they head off the next day and everything with like a backpack full of bread. No Gilmon bread yet, but they head off. And then kind of the next iteration that we get with this is when Takato and the group are like sleeping in this weird MC Escher sketch house, you know, place in the digital world for like one of their first nights there. When they're sleeping there, Takato like kind of digs through his backpack and he finds this, you know, little thing sewn into the bottom, and he pulls it off, and inside is a Lucky Charm and a letter from his mom. And this is the letter.
Dear Takato, there's so much I wanted to tell you before you left, but there wasn't time, so I'm writing this letter to tell you how proud your father and I are of you. It seems like only yesterday you were a little baby putting spinach up your nose. You always knew how to make me laugh. But look at you now, so independent and so brave. I know I've been hard on you sometimes, telling you to get your head out of the clouds and into your school books. But the truth is, I love everything about you, even the quirky parts. You get those from your father. I'll make you a deal. I won't worry myself sick over you if you promise me you'll come home safe and sound. Lots of love, Mom. P.S. The Gilmon bread still needs a little work. P.P.S. The Lucky Charm carries all my love with it. We miss you, son.
And during the time frame that we see Takato reading the letter, we see these flashbacks to the real world, where we cut to the real world, where we see his parents, his mom's clearly worried about him. She's like, checking his bed and everything. And we see his dad, and like, he's got like this tray that's got like, this attempt at like Gyomon bread on it and everything. Which, I mean, for the dad, for Takahiro, it's him wanting to, um, he's making the Gyomon bread, A, because it would make Gilmon happy, and B, it gives him something to focus on. Because it's like, well, Gilmon has to come back, and therefore Takato has to come back, so that way Gilmon can, try the bread and everything. So it's like, that's just kind of like the way that I rationalize that. It's like, well, I'm going to do this because then I know when they come back, they have to come back so they can try this. It gives you it just gives you something to focus on in that regard. And, we see how worried they both are, obviously. And then, we see, Takato in the digital world, he's got like the charm and everything, and he's like sad, but he's like really happy that his mom sent him, gave him the letter, because it shows that she does have confidence in him and that she is proud of him. And, he kind of left thinking that, well, my dad kind of gave me the okay, but I don't really know if my mom did. She still seems really worried. And she is, but she's like, you're your own person and you're going to do this regardless of whatever I say. So I might as well support you in this endeavor. And such. I would be a lot more concerned if Takato was going to the digital world alone with only Gilmon and none of the other kids. Because I love Takato, but I don't think he has as much rational thinking ability as Henry and Rika do. So yeah. And then kind of the next, connection that we get with the parents is when the Tamers are, of course, returning to the real world. We have, well, first we have this moment where like, Yamaki and the Monster Makers have like gathered together the parents of all of the Digidestined, or all of the Tamers. Digidestined is the original series. Tamers is what they're called in this one. Gathered together all the parents of the Tamers, and are just like, okay, so here's the situation. Your kids are in this place called the digital world, and, we kind of have this vague ability to be able to communicate with them with the communication device that Yamaki sent with them. And admittedly, by technicality, the message from Takato could easily be, faked, unless, like, Takato didn't, like, it's not like his dad took the device and said, give me that, I have to confirm that this is my actual son, type of a thing, it's like, it's not that type of a thing. Just, faith that that's real. And it's true, it is it is, an actual communication from Takato. And then one of the other things that happens is, of course, that's, of course, when the Monster Makers start working on the Ark to be able to bring the Tamers back to the real world, because, like, they didn't have a way to get back. They had a way to get there with the portal, but they don't know how to get back. So that's where the Ark comes in. And, of course, the next time that we see Takato's parents is when, the Ark is appearing in the park, at the entry point and everything, and we see Takato's parents there, and all the rest of the parents, or the majority of the parents, and a bunch of the Monster Makers and the Hypnos people and everything, Yamaki and everybody else are there. And of course, the kids return, and they have Calamon. Jerry is technically not Jerry anymore, and Leomon's gone, but, Kazu and Kenta now have their partners, and, like, Susie's there, and she's safe, and, like, Takato's there and everything. And, they're all just happy to see their kids again, and there's, we see Takato getting hugs from his mom, and, Gilmon's kind of getting petted by his dad, if I remember correctly. And, of course, that's when Takato, it's just like, well, somebody has to take Jerry back home, he volunteers, of course. And this is where they're like, well, after you're done, go to your aunt and uncle's house in wherever it is that they're having to go to. I don't remember exactly where it is. Where did they say that his aunt and uncle live? Zushi? I don't know. It's not something I'm familiar with in Japan. Don't ask me about Japan iconography or Japan geography. It's not something I'm familiar with. Not nearly as much as other people. Even though I have a cousin that's from there and is going to go live there with his wife and kids for work reasons. Hope they have fun. But, we see that his parents are very supportive of that. And then, of course, later on, we see him like call his mom and say, yeah, we're safe, Jerry's safe, but now I got to go and deal with like the D Reaper that's appeared and everything. And they're not very happy about that. And of course, we have the time frame where, they're baking at like Takado's parents' bakery, which is just one of my favorite scenes in all of the season. Because it's just like, it's the kids kind of just having fun and being kids, which is, nice and everything. And then, of course, they have it where they end up going to Rika's house because they get this letter on, at the bakery. It's just like, is this letter a trap? It's like, I don't think our parents would trap us. And it's just like, come to Rika's parents' house and everything, and we've got, food for you. And they show up there, of course, as we see Takado's parents and Rika's mom and grandma and Henry's mom. And, I mentioned this in a bunch of, and, I had actually skipped over this, I think, in Takado's video, but I know I mentioned it specifically in Rika and Henry's videos. But we have the moment where, like, they're all sitting around the table, with their Digimon there, Renamon off to the side for whatever reason. Renamon, I'm not as touchy-feely as the other ones. I'll be over here. And, so we have all of the Digimon sitting there and eating with their tamers and with the tamers' parents and everything. And, we just have, like, these great little conversations going on, which is adorable. And, Guilmon sees the Guilmon bread and he's like, oh my god, it's bread shaped like me. I'm so happy. And, like, we see Guilmon just, like, stuffing himself with food. And Takado's parents seem perfectly fine with this. Well, I mean, they made this food so that way, the kids could have something to eat other than bread after they slept at the school the night before. And, again, when the Tamers have to head off to go and fight the D Reaper at that point in time, we do, of course, get the moment where they're all getting hugs from their parents again. And, we get these moments where we have all three of the Digimon. And, I mean, like, out of all of them, yes, I've said before that Renamon is probably the most mature out of, her and Guilmon and Terriermon. With, Terriermon kind of after that, and then Guilmon, because Guilmon's the youngest out of all of them to a degree. But we have this moment where, where the Tamers are getting hugs from their parents and the Digimon were like ready to run out the door. They all pause and they all turn and look back at, like, they see their Tamers getting hugged. And it's just kind of this like head tilt moment to a degree from like Guilmon. It's like, because Digimon in this context don't quite understand what parents are. I mean, yes, Guilmon understands that Takado is the one that, created him from his imagination. He's, the one that designed him and everything way back at the beginning of the series, at the season, but it's not quite the same as, like, Takado's parents have raised him and everything. Yes, Takado kind of raised Guilmon and everything, so probably out of all of them, Guilmon probably has, like, the better concept of, like, what parents are, but Digimon, as Renamon states later on when they're interacting with the D Reaper for part of it, it's like, the D Reaper, like, Digimon don't have parents. They don't quite understand what that means. I mean, like, most Digimon are smart enough to figure out, like, what parents are. It's, obviously it's like these two humans got together and made my tamer, like, Guilmon may not quite understand that, but he understands, that Takado's parents are very, very important to him and everything. And we see that the parents are still very supportive of stuff. And part of my headcanon is that, like, Takado's parents, like, they kept bringing bread to, like, the people at Hypnos to give them stuff to eat. Just, well, you're working really hard on stuff, so we brought you bread. That's just kind of like, headcanon things. I know that Jerry's dad steals the bakery van at one point when he goes to try to attack the D Reaper, but I'll go over that more in the video about the Kato family. But there's not too much else there that happens with that. And then kind of the next time we see them, I think we see them like Takado, the parents are very supportive of the kids as they head off to go and fight the D Reaper at that point in time. And then, of course, we do kind of get, I think we see them later on at, like, the new Hypnos headquarters and such, where they're being supportive, of course, of the kids and stuff. And then kind of the next thing is, because at one point, like, the Tamers all have to, like, leave to go somewhere else. Well, Rika and Takado leave. And they go and stay with Takado's family in I think it's in Zushi is where they're supposed to be staying, but I don't know exactly. And this is where we see Takado's cousin Kai again, who I will go over in a moment. And then, this is where we see his parents again. They wish him luck before he has to, him and Gilmon head back to Tokyo or wherever it is that the D Reaper is. I don't remember. I think it's in Tokyo. It's in part of Tokyo. Head back there and everything to go and deal with the D Reaper finally. And kind of for like the last beat that we see on Takado's parents is at the end of the season, we do see Takado's parents in their bakery, where we also see like Yamaki is there and Riley is there and such. And, Takado's parents are, of course, still running the bakery and such. I'm assuming their landlords made an exception to a degree for Gilmon, although the Gilmon does still seem to stay in the park later on. Whenever, they were probably very sad for Takado and to a degree sad anyway when, Gilmon and the other Digimon had to go back to the digital world for the time frame that they were gone until they were able to return. So they were probably still sad about that. But there's not really too much else that goes on there that we see with his parents. They don't pop up in the second movie at all. They're not at Rika's birthday party or anything. We don't see them except I think maybe in like the end credits. I think maybe we see his parents, but even then, not really anything else. And like we see that Rika has a birthday cake there, but I'm assuming that cake was baked by her grandmother and Jerry, as evident earlier on in the movie. But I would assume maybe they provided some of the food for the party. Just part of my headcanon for like after everything is just like I don't see like Rika's mom may have done like free publicity for the bakery and everything to help them get their business started up again after everything happens with the D Reaper and everything, so they can get their business their feet back under them again after everything. That she did some free publicity for them. Motorcycle, go away, Beelzemon. So I just kind of have headcanon that like the parents all still stayed in contact with each other. Like, maybe Rika's mom and, Nanako, or no, not Nanako, Rika's mom and Takado's mom and Henry's mom, and Jerry's stepmom, they all get together at times and just have a gab session about how, about having tamers for kids and having to deal with Digimon. I just have that as headcanon. That's just headcanon I have. The dads get together every now and then and just discuss things. Every so many months, they all just get together and have a big tamer family party or something like that. I don't know. That's just a headcanon I have. Because I know that in the Adventure series that the parents kind of to a degree, obviously the parents of the original kids all know each other because of everything that happened. They've all been introduced to each other, or they kind of knew each other beforehand because Sora's parents knew Ty's parents beforehand and such, but now they're all getting a little bit more introduced to each other and such, and we know that they have contacts with each other and that they help the kids later on. We see that in Digimon Adventures 2. So it wouldn't surprise me if any, that Rika's parents and Takado's parents and Henry's parents, particularly his dad, definitely work on trying to help the kids now that they know about the Digimon and trying to help with things like that, giving the kids support in that regard. But now we have two other members of the Takado family, or the Matsuki family, extended Matsuki family, to deal with. We have Kai Urizo. I apologize if I mispronounced that. He is Takado's cousin. He lives in Okinawa. Or at the very least, sometimes he lives in Okinawa. And I do like this, and I love that they did this in the anime. And I don't know if this is true in the Japanese dub, but in the English dub, they have the guy that voices Kai is the guy that voices Davis in Digimon 2.0. So I kind of like how they threw that in there. But it's some of the other voices have popped up in other places because it's still dubbed by the same company. So it's not surprising of oh, this character or this voice actor dubbed this character as well. That's not surprising when that happens. But, we see him, our first introduction to him is in the Digimon movie, Battle of Adventure and everything, or Battle for Adventure, whatever it's called. And, he's Takato's cousin, and, he meets him at the airport and everything after they both get kind of, he kind of almost gets caught. He kind of almost accidentally, Kai almost accidentally accosts, like, I don't know, a celebrity or whatever, because he gets in his shot or whatever, then he almost gets arrested by airport security. But then, like, they get headed off and they head back to, the boat where, Kai just, they have to take this ferry to get to the island. And where Takato's grandfather where their grandfather lives. And Takato is just like, okay, well, I guess I'll stay here on the, yeah, or, Kai's like, well, do you know how to get to the house? He's like, yes. He's like, okay, and then Kai just, like, dives into the water and just, like, swims. Get back here! You're supposed to be the older cousin. You're supposed to be responsible for me. Get back here! I do not necessarily know how to get to your house. But, Takato ends up, does kind of find his way to the house, and Kai ends up meeting Gilmon and everything, and then we're introduced to Takato and Kai's grandfather, Wataru, Zoe, sorry. And I'm assuming that this is their grandfather on, like, their mother's side of the family, as in, like, Takato's mother's side of the family, because, I don't know, because, like, he doesn't have the Matsuki last name, so he's not from that side of the family. So I'm assuming that this is, like, Wataru's children are Yoshi, and then Takato's, like, uncle. I don't remember if we ever get a name on Takato's uncle. And we see that, and we're introduced to him, and Wataru is actually kind of I really like Wataru. He's fun. He's only in the movie, but he's still fun. And like, he sees Gilmon, and he's, like, perfectly fine with Gilmon. He believes that Gilmon is just, like, a talking dog, and his answer is, well, the guardian of this island, Caesarmon, is a talking dog, so why can't that just be a talking dog? And then, of course, Calamon comes into the picture, and Kai's like, well, how do you explain that one? A flying talking dog? And, like, Kai is, like, okay with Gilmon almost right off the bat. He's a little initially, like, kind of, not scared, but a little bit like, okay, what is this, when he first sees Gilmon, but he ends up getting along with him fine. And then, of course, we have, like, this day where, like, we see Takato and Kai and Gilmon out and about, and, like, Calamon out and about, like, just having fun on the boat and everything, and swimming around and doing some fishing and everything. And they have, like, a cookout. And then, of course, Kai is there during the part of the movie, or the parts of the movie where they're dealing with Minami and everything, and taking care of her and all of that. And the grandfather is there during those parts as well. The grandfather also plays, it's not a violin, but I don't know exactly what it's called. It's another type of, like, string instrument that you play with a bow, but instead of playing it like this, you play it like, you sit it on the ground and then you play it like this. But it's not like any of the other, like, violin looking things. It's not like the violin on steroids that is the bass. But I don't know exactly what it's called. He plays that, and such. And then, of course, that night, after they have Minami there and everything, they end up getting attacked by several Digimon, including a Scubamon that Wataru... He's just like, okay, no, I'm just gonna fight this thing, because he does, they're like, he does martial arts and everything. Like, we saw him earlier, like, doing some martial arts stuff with, like, Takato and Kai and everything. And he's just like, I'm just gonna fight this Digimon thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna fight it because it's attacking my home and attacking my grandchildren and their friend, and this girl that we just saved. So he just, like, gets, he just, like, puts his fist together, and I think he actually delivers, like, a really good kick to the Scubamon, if I remember correctly. Doesn't do, like, a whole lot of damage to the Scubamon, but it's like, okay, you stood your ground. Very well done there. And then they end up, defeating the Scubamon via other, methods or whatever. Gilmon defeats it, or Caesarmon defeats it, one of the two. We don't see the grandpa again, but presumably he's okay. I don't think we see him at the end of the movie, but he's presumably fine. They probably need to rebuild part of his house. We do have this conversation, though, between Kai and Takato, where Kai asks, well, what is it that you plan on doing when you grow up or whatever? And, Kai's answer is kind of like, well, I plan on becoming a fisherman, just like, like my parents. And he's like, well, you're going to take over the bakery when you grow up, aren't you? And Takado's a little bit, I don't know about that. Beyond the bits where we see him making bread with like Rika and Henry and their Digimon, we don't really see him doing other forms of cooking for the most part. There's not really too much else that we see Takado do in that regard. But then again, Takado kind of wants to be an artist to a degree. We see that when he's like drawing out the Gilmon stuff and everything. So maybe he would do that. Maybe he could take over the bakery. We don't know. We never see the grandpa again, but we do see Kai later on in the series, as I mentioned earlier, when Takado and his parents are staying in Zushi. They end up coming across, or Kai like shows up there, and like sees Takado again and everything, and they end up having this talk about Jerry, and Takado ends up having Takado and Kai have this talk, and because he's like talking about Jerry, and Kai's like, well, she's your first love, and Takado's like turns red at that. He's like, no. It's just like, no, Jerry's your first crush. It's obvious to most everybody. And there's that, and Kai is very supportive of him in that regard, in being able to help Jerry and everything. We don't see him again at the end, after that in the series, because there's not really any point to see him again. He doesn't pop up again. Neither does the grandpa. I don't know. Since they don't ever state anything about in the series about like everybody else getting Digimon, maybe at some point Kai got a Digimon, but I don't know. And then yeah, we do mention that there's like Takado has an aunt and an uncle, as I said, that live in Zushi, Kanagawa. Sorry. Lived there, and he was supposed to go there after he dropped off Jerry with her parents, but he didn't. That's when he heads off to go and start fighting the D Reaper for the first time. But then they end up later on, that's where they do kind of stay for a short while between when the monster makers are getting stuff ready for them to be able to use against, getting things ready to try to fight against the D Reaper at that point in time. They stay there, presumably with Takado's aunt and uncle, but we never see them again. And it's never stated whether or not these are Kai's parents. That would make them, his mother's family, or if this is his father's side of the family and Kai just happens to be there for moral support and cameo reasons. Because it's not very often with Digimon that we actually see characters get brought in from the movies. Because Kai, I think, was like an original character in the movie, but I don't know where in the development of the series that movie would take place. In regards to like, oh, well, we're going to have a movie at this point in time. So yeah, we'll work Takado's cousin in there, and then he can show up again at the end of the series. Because like with the original movies for Digimon, like Michael never shows up in the actual, or not Michael, Willis never shows up in the actual series, I don't believe. But yeah, that's what we have for the Matsuki family and the extended family. There's not really too much else to go on with them. As I said, headcanon is Takado's parents and, Rika's family and Henry's family and the other parents of the Tamers, like, either get together and gab at various points in times, or like the dads just like get together to just have like a nice quiet evening, and like they invite Yamaki or something like that. That's just headcanon that I have. The moms invite, Riley and Riley and Tally, like they invite them to come and like, come on, just come and have a drink with us. Just come and enjoy your evening with us. I don't know. That's the headcanon. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And next up on the Digimon stuff will be about Henry's family. So have a nice rest of your day. Bye.